We are calling to order the meeting of the Federal Way School Board. This evening we have Director Barney, Director Wilson, Director Pearson, and myself, Director Griffin, present. Our President, Director Moore, is celebrating his daughter's graduation from college in Florida, where it's sunny. We will now stand for our presentation of the colors and Pledge of Allegiance.
Forward. March. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Carrie, color. Order. Color. Right. Wait. Forward. Color. Forward. March.
Thank you. You may be seated. I look for an approval of our agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting agenda of May 14th, 2013 as submitted.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions, comments, board members? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? So moved. Look for an approval of the consent agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda of May 14th, 2013 as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? So carries. Next, we will have our student staff recognition by our Deputy Superintendent, Mark Davidson.
Thank you. Vice President Griffin, members of the board, Mr. New. At this time, I'd like to introduce Representative Linda Kochmar to make a presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you. It seems a little odd to be looking at you from this end when I normally was for 15 years sitting up there. And by the way, when you're standing on this end and you're speaking, 3-minute speech when you're giving a talk goes really fast. It's amazing. I am making a presentation to Caleb Dawson. I don't see him in the audience. I'm sure at this time of year he's very, very busy, a graduating high school senior. He is the ASB president at Federal Way High School. And we did recognize him in the State House of Representatives, and we passed a resolution in honor of him for all of the food that he collected last Halloween. So let me read the resolution, and I will present it to you, and then perhaps you can send it to him, or if he shows up a little later, then give it to him. But thank you. So, whereas Caleb Dawson, an esteemed resident of Federal Way and a student of Federal Way High School, has achieved national recognition for exemplary volunteer service by receiving a 2013 Presidential Spirit of Community Award. And whereas this prestigious award, presented by Prudential Financial in partnership with the National Association of Secondary School Principals, honors young volunteers across America who have demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to serving their communities. And whereas Mr. Dawson earned this award by giving generously of his time and energy to his community by coordinating a food drive that collected nearly 10,000 pounds of food and rallied our young people for the greater cause. And whereas Mr. Dawson's community service extends far beyond the Prudential Spirit of Community Award, with service as student body president of Federal Way High School, among many other notable achievements. And whereas the success of the state of Washington, the strength of our communities, and the overall vitality of American society depend in great measure upon the dedication of young people like Mr. Dawson, who use their considerable talents and resources to serve others. Now therefore be it resolved that the Washington State House of Representatives congratulate and honor Mr. Dawson as a recipient of a Prudential Spirit of Community Award, recognize his outstanding record of volunteer service, peer leadership, and community service, and extend best wishes for his continued success and happiness. And I want to say that I understand that Caleb was a scholarship winner at Gonzaga. So we're very proud of Mr. Dawson, and so we can thank him. Which, if he watches this video, he can consider himself thanked.
Thank you.
So,
thank you for taking the time to come down and
shall I
make
just
this
read
presentation.
here? Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Jack Stanford from the Rotary with a couple of Rotary Students of the Month. Thank you, Jack.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent. They're leaving as soon as I get here. Oh, you're coming down for the They're coming down for the picture already. So, Federal Way Rotary has been involved in this committee for many, many years, and besides our scholarships and other community groups we work with, one of the things we really enjoy for probably the last 15 years, in part thanks to the Secretary, to Chris Poppage, for kind of keeping that well organized within the school system, which is a very difficult thing to do. It's a very large corporation. But it works, and it is so much fun. We visit each high school once a year. We interview, the students are selected by the high school, and we interview the students, and we pick one or two or three or four. Sometimes it's very difficult. This was one time it was very difficult. But today we're presenting awards for a couple of students from Thomas Jefferson. So I'm going to have them, I think probably both of you come up. We have Justin, let me put my glasses on before. Why don't you come on up, Justin? Justin Alamaris, and then Abhishek Murali. Why don't you come on up, guys? So why don't we first do this part. So there's your plaque. Thank you. And so, you know, they're gonna talk. I'm gonna kind of tell you a little bit about them, just kind of so that you get a. Usually, kids don't like talking about themselves, but I enjoy talking about them. So. I have to say, you're going to find out in a second, these two young gentlemen are so different, but yet so much the same. It's just amazing. Justin is 4.0, IB, you know, it's just, I don't know if you can get more brilliant than this. He's a math tutor. He's on the math team, swim captain. He was part of the Thomas Jefferson robotics team. I think this was the first year for robotics for the, and I think they both were. It's all about math. It's all about math. It's all about science. I think STEM is kind of the word that all of those things excite both of these gentlemen. Justin, and I'm going to ask him to talk a little bit about it. You know, we're always struggling to know how we use math. And his Eagle project, he just became an Eagle Scout this year. And his Eagle project is involved in orientating, I can't even, it's tough.
Orienteering.
There we go. And he'll explain how that works. It's a little bit beyond me. Basically, that's pretty much it. He's the tall, silent type, so he's not, interested in giving a big speech. But why don't you just, say a few words?
Right. So basically what orienteering is it's a sport that involves using a map and a compass to find different points that are laid out in usually a state park or just a park in general. And for my orienteering course, I decided to make a permanent course at Celebration Park. So I used wooden posts with a little marker with a number on them, and then made the map using the Celebration map to create a course throughout the park and using the BPA trail that's open for the public and anyone who wants to try orienteering.
You understand that? So you have to use then longitude and latitude, and what do you use? How do you go from point to point?
Basically, just to get from point to point, you look at just how the map orientation works with the paths and the trails and different features on the map, such as power lines, and then you look, or you can use the north lines on the map to line it up with your compass, and then you know from there which direction to travel to get to the next point. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. We're going to do picture now. Both?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then we'll bring them separately and together.
All right. You have to take direct. That's why you're the superintendent, right? All right. Abhishek is not the silent type, so I'll tell you that right off the bat. It's kind of an interesting high school career. He did 2 years in the public academy, and then just only 2 years at Thomas Jefferson. But I don't think there's anything he hasn't achieved in those 2 years. He felt a little bit, I think he would like a couple more years of high school so he could do everything. But once again, math, robotics, advancing leadership, which, we hear a lot with kids. I mean, it's something that we really need to spread throughout the district and push it hard. It changed. He'll probably talk a little bit about that. Does anyone else need to talk tonight? Because he's probably going to go on for quite a while. He was the tennis captain also, and he was also the girls' tennis manager. Now is that, so he probably enjoyed that. Yeah. He's a Seafair ambassador. He was part of the NASA Inspire program, and he'll probably want to talk a little bit about that. You're going to know right away that he was a state debate kid, so you'll see that. All the academics, it's all there, and he'll talk a little bit about what's going on with him, what inspires him, and what he would like to do. So there you go.
So like he mentioned, I'm part of the speech and debate team, and one of the events that I do on speech and debate is impromptu speaking, which is basically speaking on the fly. So you're going to see a lot of that now because I didn't really prepare this beforehand. But I guess I'd start off with Advancing Leadership Youth and how that impacted me. I started at FWAPA in my sophomore year. And to be in Federal Way, I always assumed that Federal Way was such like a small town that didn't have very much and that my school community didn't have too much. But through the program itself, when I met all these other youth around my area, all these other people who are interested in becoming leaders and making a change in their community, it opened up new doors for me. And so just going through that experience, I found that Federal Way has a lot more opportunities that you can basically take advantage of. And what it kind of taught me was just to take every opportunity that you get. And so throughout my high school career, that's kind of what I focused on. And I'm really interested in STEM, which is like science, technology, engineering, math. I want to be an aerospace engineer, so any little opportunity I can get to kind of get more information on the field to try and just, get ahead of the rest of the people. I try and take it, and I don't know. I have a good time learning about math and science. Kind of weird, but it works. Yeah, School's interesting. Trust me, school's interesting in like class. I go off on physics all day. Yeah, I don't really have too much to say other than that. I'm more of, I just enjoy doing what I do, and I'm just thankful that, you know, Federal Way Public Schools provides me that opportunity, and my parents provided me that opportunity as well. So thank you very much.
Cool.
Thanks again, you guys. Thank you, sir. All right, yeah, no worries. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Vince Blauser, our Executive Director of Secondary Education, who has a presentation. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent New, members of the audience. Tonight, I have been given the distinct honor of introducing to you the 2012-13 Todd Beamer dance team, sitting over here. Not your ordinary team. This group has performed at extremely high level all season long. While following a long history of dance championships at Todd Beamer, through its inception 10 years ago, the program's 10 years long. To put this in perspective, this 2013 team became the 8th team in school's 10-year history to bring home a state championship. 8 out of 10. So I think that this team should be classified as a dynasty. Not only 8 out of 10, but they've won 4 state championships in a row. Pretty amazing feat. Yeah. Now, before they even got to state, this year they competed in a number of competitions in the local area. In all but one competition in which they placed second in one, they've won, including the District 3 championship title at Kentwood High School earlier this year. But not only has this team had great success in the local and state level of competition, they've also achieved national success. This year, the dance team traveled to Costa Mesa, California, and competed in the USA Nationals in jazz and hip-hop competition. The team competed in a medium and large division, and in the medium category, they placed second, only a third of a point below the national champions. Now, I was there, and if I had voted, they did an amazing job. Anyway, they did an amazing job. In the large division, the team received third place in a routine choreographed by one of their very own captains, Desmond Garcia. Desmond, raise your hand. Take a bow. Coach Felicia Valiani was recently quoted as saying, "I've never had a team until this year that brought back a trophy in every competition and achieved a near-perfect season. This would not have happened had it not been for the hard work and dedication of this talented group of dancers and the support of their families. It's my honor to introduce to you true champions as dancers, but also amazing individuals. Coach, congratulations. Todd Beamer High School, congratulations." Come on up with the picture. Desmond, you gonna break into
And, excuse me, finally this evening, I'd like to introduce Principal Chris Baker, Principal of Totem, who has a presentation. Chris?
We're here tonight to recognize Elizabeth Gooseman and Adrienne McKay, the science teacher. She's our coach and our science department chair, who brought this wonderful project that all of our 7th graders are involved in. And what it is it's from the Northwest Association of Biomedical Research, and they have a contest called Biomedical Breakthroughs in My Life. And the students do animal models and clinical trials in science. In language arts, they do the writing process, and they reflect on why we need to do animal research. And at first they have a view like we shouldn't be doing that, and then once they do their research, they understand the lives that it saves. And then the students also learn the MCA format, MLA format, and how to write the paper, and they learn that in their math class, and that's where they do the research. So I passed out some little booklets. I was able to get a couple extra. Her research paper is in there, and she won in the category of ELL. There were 454 entries from all over the state, and there was a first, second, and third place, and a first place for ELL. She got a $100 gift certificate, and we spent a whole day at the Puget Sound Blood Center Research Institute, where she met scientists and doctors, and we visited some of the labs, the ones that the kids could visit, and they actually let us go in one. You had to be over 18, and I qualified. So it was a wonderful day. It was so interesting for me, and such an honor for Elizabeth. So, Elizabeth, you can just...
Well, thank you very much for all of you, and thanks to Ms. McKay. She helped me a lot on the project.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth.
That's it tonight. Thank you.
Next, we will have student tablets presentation by Ron Mayberry.
All right. Good evening, board members, Superintendent New, Deputy Superintendent Mark Davidson. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about some of the work we've done with student tablets this year in our pilots. And I have brought in 4 of the TOSAs from IT and TFL to speak more specifically about these projects. So we had Angie, who's over our ebook program using iPads in various elementaries. Jake Booker is using with LearnPads in elementary schools. Sarah with one-to-one in Nautilus and Woodmont, and Don Brown with one-to-one at Sahali. So we're going to start with Angie.
Good evening. This first pilot came out of a committee actually last year that was looking at the transition to the Common Core, and we had lots of conversation about making sure that we have books in kids' hands that are rich and rigorous, both at grade level and also below grade level. And so we looked at our different elementary schools, thought about what kind of book rooms are in each one, classroom libraries, and thought, what if we looked at kind of outside of the box and possibly looked at an e-book room, basically, that these teachers could have access to, where we could get books, a larger amount of books in kids' hands. So we bought iPads, 5 iPads for each of these 4 classrooms, and looked at 2 primary classrooms and 2 intermediate classrooms. I'm not sure how to click. Not sure how to click here. Oh, thank you.
Oops. I did the wrong button. But
this one?
Sorry.
No.
Here, use this one.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that
Okay, that works too. So we looked at 2 primary classrooms, a first grade classroom and a second grade classroom, and then a 4th and a 5th grade classroom. And we made sure that the teacher had access to an iPad, and then we had 5 iPads for students to use, both in small group instruction, guided reading instruction, and then also they had access to those during independent reading time for various students. And of course they had them throughout the day, so not only did they get to use them during this their literacy block, but also during math and science, and you can be sure that they took advantage of these all throughout the day. Students could either, like I said, they could use them individually, and they also could use them in small groups. And then individually, we were able to find some great apps that kids could use where they read the books, kids could read the books themselves, or the app would read the books to them. And so this was especially helpful for our ELL students who got to hear fluent reading to them as before they practiced it themselves. We have a couple quotes from a couple of different teachers, but basically what our quotes say and what our teachers talk about is how motivating this was for our students to be able to use the devices and have access to over 3,000 books, many of which were really rich nonfiction books that were of high appeal to especially our boy readers. So that was really exciting. You can see in this picture one of our second graders looking at not only reading books, but being able to find ways to display their learning and their knowledge in different ways than just a graphic organizer. So this little guy's got some information that he's learned about whales to present. So I think the biggest benefits, there were 3 really huge benefits, I think, to this pilot. First was that student motivation. We found that students are much more motivated to read on an iPad than a hardback book. And I think for our 4th and 5th grade classrooms in particular, our students who, struggling students, there's always that peer influence, and so an iPad looks the same. A high-level iPad book looks the same as a lower-level iPad book. And so I think self-esteem-wise, that was a big motivator for some of our kiddos. And second, that they had access to huge amounts of high-quality, rich text, which I think was very motivating and encouraged kids to read more. And then third, that our ELLs had access to hearing books read to them before they practice those books themselves. I'm really looking forward to looking at the data from these 4 classrooms to see what a difference it made. My initial thought is that after talking to one of the 5th grade teachers that used this, she said that all but 2 of her students are reading on grade level. So not hard data yet, but pretty exciting to see that. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Jake Booker. I'm one of the technology TOSAs, and I'm really excited to share some of the work that's going on at Olympic View and over at Mirror Lake. They've been using LearnPads for about 3 weeks now. And what I'd love to do is show you a video, if I can find the escape key on here. There it is. We use this video to get the students and the staff excited about the LearnPad pilot. All right. Thank you. So right now we have 30 devices, and these devices are spread out across 2 schools with 5 teachers. We're currently serving about 130 students with these devices, and the images that are up on the screen now are actually from a science unit. They were able to find an app through the learning management system that was aligned with our science kit. So what they're doing right now is they're looking at an insect unit, and there's this app that's specifically designed for the kit. So the kids are able to have the book read to them. There are interactive videos, and there are questions and activities that go along with this device for the specific unit. So we see a lot of potential in this, and we're really looking forward to seeing it expanded beyond the initial pilot. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll turn it over to our next.
Hello, my name is Sarah Nolet, and I'm also one of the IT TOSAs. And I have been working with the iPad pilot over at Nautilus and Woodmont, where we rolled out 180 iPads. So every student in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at both schools has an iPad to use. And let me tell you, they were really excited. I went over to the school and did the basic introduction that I've done with teachers all over the district, and they picked up this stuff so fast. In fact, they were showing me stuff that I didn't know how to do. They're using the iPads to do schoolwork through Edmodo, which allows them to access some of the activities from the iPad that they've done during the school day at home. This is an example from Mr. Stafford's class where he actually allows the kids to turn stuff in electronically. They have videos there that they discuss together in the forum, which is pretty cool. And here's some examples of Note Shelf, which is an app that we use for note taking, where they are able to type, they can handwrite. Two different students turn these in, and they actually display them on Edmodo as well, so that they can help each other. I really like this one on the right. There's a bunch of like strong arms around this thing he wanted to remember, which I think is neat. They also use other multimedia formats. This student had to do a project about Taming of the Shrew. So he went out and found an app called PicCollage, which I had never heard of, and figured out that if he combined PicCollage with an app called Wallpaper Free, he could get free images to throw into this and not have to worry about stealing pictures and stealing images. And so he put this together for that, which I thought was neat. And then I just want to show you a little piece of a quick video that a student made about the rock cycle. So this was a lab they did in class using peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to make the different types of rocks. They videoed all of this, the student videotaped all of this with the iPad and then put them all, this whole video together. Which I thought was pretty impressive. They did this project probably 2 weeks after having the iPad. So I don't want to show you the whole video because it's 2 minutes long, but So both of the principals at the schools invited you to come out and visit anytime you'd like. The iPads are being used pretty much in every class every day. So come on out and check out what they're doing. It's just amazing, really, watching the students. There was one day where Mr. Stafford was actually absent. He had a substitute. The kids were sitting in their class with their iPads out. They were doing videos. They were doing Edmodo. He was able to communicate to them through Edmodo while they were working with the sub. The sub was like, this is just the best sub job ever. So it's been really great to see what's been going on over there. So thank you.
Hello. So I'm working with the LearnPads as well over at Sahali. We currently are one-to-one for all 6th and 7th grade students. So it's about I think it's around 310 devices right now. Next year we'll be adding all of the 8th graders. It's a personalized device that belongs to that student while they're enrolled at the school, so they have their own personal login. Nobody else can log into it. It's stored each day. And what's nice about having the LearnPad is the content is controlled by the teacher. So from class period to class period, they scan for that class's work that day, and it gives them the work they need for that class. And they go to the next class and scan in the next one. These are some pictures of our deployment. We actually trained in 2 steps. We did all the 6th graders on one day, and all the 7th graders on the next day is step 1 of just getting them logged in and familiar with what the device looked like. And then we did some follow-up training within small classrooms and spent 2 days teaching the kids on how to get into the device as Edmodo and how to navigate their way through. What's been really nice is the teachers are so open to it. They've really embraced the idea of changing classroom management, changing what it means to instruct, changing what it means for students to deliver their knowledge and what it means to actually know something. So I've taken some pictures of a science class, and what's cool about this, I went over today as well, and they did the next step that I didn't know they were going to do, otherwise I have a picture of it for you. They laid out cards for the food web, they took a picture, and then the kids figured out, none of us knew you could do this, within the LearnPad's camera, you can actually doodle on the picture. And so today they showed me, one young man showed me, he had taken different colors to show the arrows to represent decomposers and consumers and first level consumers and tertiary. And so it was really interesting, and they're figuring this out. The next thing that's been really exciting is the PE teachers. Every week I've met with the 2 PE teachers as they develop how they're going to turn this into a PE portfolio, having the students do online video blogs of their growth over the year and how they're doing better and better at their running and other things they're doing. So that's the LearnPads for you, nice and short and sweet. And just like Sarah said, please come out anytime and see what the kids are doing. They're taking them all over. They have them out at lunch and they're playing around with it. Quite a few kids told me today that they actually like coming to school now because it's not boring anymore. So that's been pretty exciting to watch 6th graders excited. Thank you.
I want to thank my team for their presentation. I also want to give a little shout out to Terry Galloway in Decatur, who's a PE teacher, and she's been given the opportunity with about a dozen tablets, and she's doing some really cool things with PE, taking videos, having kids annotate and self-evaluate so that she can understand what they think about what they just did in that particular skill, and then she gives them feedback. She's posting QR codes for websites and information about healthy eating, exercises, etc. So there are a lot of cool things happening with tablets, you know, regardless of brand. I wanted, in closure, just to kind of thank our local taxpayers for the technology levy that's kind of helped bring this to us, to this pilot stage this year. As we're in pilots, we're excited about the future when we move from pilot to some real thoughts about what happens across our district. This is all on behalf of a 6-year capital project which was approved in February 2010, started funding in 2011, and we're now in our 3rd year of 6. And so we look forward to future opportunities with our kids and tablets and other computing devices. This has been an incredibly exciting year for those devices too. They just keep popping out new ones all over the place. So we're watching what's happening and looking forward to making decisions there. So if there are any questions, we can answer them. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Comments?
Just for me, obviously, I'm so glad we're doing a pilot instead of just trying to throw a bunch of computers out there and hope, you know, the technology works. And I'm just hoping that we're just learning the lessons right now. How are we logging? Just kind of, are we establishing a program for how we're going to launch it district-wide, kind of learning the bumps along the way right now? Is that kind of the process of how we're doing
Absolutely.
school?
The process this year was to get some of these pilots approved, get them out in the hands of staff first. So Sarah spoke of Nautilus Woodmont. We did early training in November, but by the time we moved through all the hoops to get the purchases done and those sorts of things, students took, I think, possession early February. With Sahali, it's just been in the last 2 weeks. Same thing with the LearnPads. The iPads that were out in the elementary that Angie's working with, those were actually repurposed iPads because we updated our secondary and our middle school principals with new iPads. So those iPads that came out of that were repurposed into those elementary schools. So, and all with the purpose of learning and understanding the benefits. And yes, we are tracking. I would say our next fall semester is going to be where we really get some real data about, you know, anecdotally, we have lots of kids excited about learning, which is, you can't beat that, but we'll see how it sustains. So.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I'm sure that there's students that have seen technology in one light, and this opens it up to the possibilities of what you can use it for. And even you have teachers that maybe are just kind of holding, right. I don't know if I want to get involved in this, and having their eyes open to this great venue of how to learn. So I'm excited that we're moving forward with it.
It's the whole process of letting them plug in
Absolutely.
instead of unplug when they come through the door. And you know, and in the tech levy, what's also brought that is our, you know, allowing us to extend our wireless and some of those things. So we're at that point where we can allow students to bring their own devices. We need to figure out how that works in our schools, but we have the infrastructure. We're increasing infrastructure for wireless in our secondary schools this summer and elementary the following summer, to the point that a teacher who wants to try a bring your own device type program, they have the tools. Google's up, wireless is up, they're ready. They just, and I've got a team that will support them.
I had a question about, Angie, you were talking about the, when you were sharing about the ebook pilot, I noticed that you talked about grades 1 and 2 and grades 4 and 5. And my assumption would be, is that the grade level teaming, or how did you make that decision, and is what happens to that second grader that moves to third?
Yeah, we were really just looking at some teachers who were somewhat tech savvy and wouldn't be afraid of putting those into play. Although at Wildwood, we chose one teacher who was really tech savvy and someone who was not as tech savvy, and she was really excited to see how easy it was to start implementing. And so, like I said, I'm not sure where we're going with them next. We're going to have a hard time prying it out of their hands.
I was going to say, does the device follow the child, or does the device stay in a classroom?
In this case, the device is the classroom. In the case of the one-to-ones, as Don mentioned, the sixth grader that has a device now will move up to seventh grade with their device, and seventh grader will move to eighth, and we'll buy new ones for the incoming sixth graders.
So is there a thought about how the rollout might happen with the ebook situation?
No.
We haven't
That's
had
a
that
discussion we need to have.
Yeah, we
Thanks.
do.
We want to support it, though, so we'll find.
Yeah, I just would hate to see kids get used to getting excited about a strategy or a good support and then have them leave a situation where that strategy is left behind. So if there's a way that we can either think about rolling up and out as it follows students or something so that kids aren't with and then without.
Yeah, we're trying something this summer with 240 K through 2 students with the LearnPad, so that'll be
awesome.
Another exciting opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will have Dave Davis with a gradebook update for us.
Members of the board, Superintendent New, Deputy Superintendent Davidson. I thought now would be a good time to come and give you an update on our progress in terms of a new gradebook. From February to May, we've done quite a bit of back-end work. Specifically, we've met with 4 different times with gradebook committees. The gradebook committee was led by Cindy Black and made up of teachers, principals, interventionists, and coaches. Those committees started over a year ago with the set plan to come to the district with suggestions of how to improve standards-based grading in Fairway Public Schools. And it started before we knew we were going to the Synergy product. So it was in response to a lot of questions and concerns. But in the last few months, we've had quite a few meetings as we move to the new Synergy gradebook of what works well and what we need to do to move forward. Also, in the last 4 months, when we rolled out in February and announced that we were going to adopt a new gradebook, Ron and I met and with the IT TOSA team and said, how do we want to train our teachers? And the idea, under the guidance of EduPoint, was to come up with a train-a-trainer model. Specifically, identify teachers and staff that are willing to go through the training on behalf of the district and then train our staff on the new system. And to our surprise, over 65 people applied for roughly 16 positions. That's a lot. That's a lot more, which told us that they're excited to go to this new product. They believe in the messaging. They believe in what they have seen. They believe in the capacity of what we are trying to do in Fairway Public Schools. So there were some tough decisions made about that. And out of those 16, there were 2 layers of them. One was what we call lead EduPoint trainers, and the other is called EduPoint trainers. But in sum, those are the teachers that are going through training now and are on the conference calls and are in the meetings that we are now having with Synergy and EduPoint in how we are building this ship in dry dock, if you will, right now. And those are the teachers and staff that will be leading the training of their staffs in August in conjunction with the IT tussles that you saw up here. We've had multiple conference calls and visits with EduPoint staff. It just so happens EduPoint is here this week working with us. They were here today working on various aspects, and tomorrow Sally is coordinating 3 days of conversation with different aspects of EduPoint. They've been wonderful partners. We have weekly conference calls with them on Thursdays in which the staff members, the EduPoint trainers, are able to participate off-site, so they can call in and be part of and ask those questions from their lens in the building to make sure that we're taking into consideration all the different aspects as we, again, build this ship in dry dock. But again, EduPoint has been a wonderful partner in this. Yesterday, IT staff, specifically Jake, rolled out an online training module for our EduPoint trainers. This is our first chance where staff, we're testing it now, where staff can log in and play in the sandbox, if you will, play in the system a little bit. It won't replace the training that'll take place for them in August, but it gives them a taste, it gives them a vision, it gives them an opportunity to kind of, again, go and play in what we call a sandbox. We've, on day-to-day, myself and Susan Dively spent time at 3 buildings, talking to them at their request, talking to them at length about the Synergy product, about the EduPoint product, and rolling that out. Tomorrow we're over at Green Gables for a 2-hour, and so we're starting to be in buildings just to kind of not just show them that, but really start to, now that we've built quite a bit of it, what the capacity of this new system is. And as we go, we're loading standards. Now that Marie's team from TFL has finalized some standards, we're starting to load standards and courses. That's through May. Well, actually right now, because EduPoint's here and we've rolled out the online training. Working forward, next week I'll be presenting to Superintendent New and the leadership team some final recommendations on the grading protocol as it applies to policy 2420, the sliding scale, if you will. And this is, again, based on those 4 meetings with the gradebook committee, with meetings with students, with meetings with staff, with meetings with parents, lots of committees, lots of meetings. Had to assimilate all that information into a series of recommendations that would impact, again, the grading policy starting next year. And so Ron and I will be presenting that to the leadership team next week. As I mentioned, we're in the next few months, in the next couple weeks, we're going to fully roll out so teachers can log in and play in the sandbox. Working with Treesmore and others, we're going to start to, starting May, I want to say May 29th, starting parent forums. We want to be able to show parents what Parent View is. We get a glimpse of it tomorrow with Synergy, so that we bring parents in. This is what it looks like. How can we build your capacity? What are some things that you would like us to consider for the Parent View, grades online, or Student View, grades online, if you will, in terms of building that and how we roll it out, timing and all that kind of stuff. We are real close to finalizing the elementary and middle school report cards. High school report cards are high school report cards, you know, because they're credit bearing. But now, as we transition to Common Core and some recommendations about how we grade, we had to reframe our report cards. And so a team of elementary principals, along with some middle school principals, put together some draft reports, and now we're in the process of finalizing those. Our goal is to have a good draft in hand to share those out with staff before the end of the year. Along with our district EduPoint trainers, the 16 that we identified, we will also be identifying building level EduPoint trainers. Often we refer to those as GPSs. Okay, so we're rebranding that to match what the product is, EduPoint trainers. Okay, so we'll be identifying those folks. We went through our current GPS list, and we'll be tasking to see who of those people want to continue with that work and identifying those that want to. We also have some recommendations from the GPS cohort of some things they would like adjusted in the support model. For the most part, the support model, based on feedback from the GPSs, has worked quite well in terms of monthly meetings, regular updates, direct lines of communication with the IT staff that you saw up there, direct opportunities for IT staff to go out and walk them through that. Obviously, we're going to have a high needs in terms of support rolling the product out next fall. Susan Dively is working diligently in terms of fully loading those standards and courses, because we're going to go live August 1, and we want to have everything in play, including the thousands of standards linked to the hundreds of courses that have identified those priority standards with the leadership of TFL. And then training fully commences for Federal Way Public School staff August. And we have just a whole month of training as part of their 4+1 day requirement. Many staffs have signed up together that will be trained again by those EduPoint trainers and lead EduPoint trainers along with the IT staff. And so there'll be teachers training teachers with the rest of us running around just problem solving as best we can. So most of the staffs have signed up together so they can learn together, so they can get their best ideas together and walk out the door and be ready to go before September 4. So that's a quick update. I'm sure we'll circle back once those final recommendations around 2420 are in play and talk more about what that looks like, and also share more out about the parent view and student view, or grades online, if you will. There is an app available if you want to download that through your phone or through your iPad. Though that is one of the neat things about this system, is that parents are not going to just access them through their computer, but through these things. Okay. It's pretty cool. So, any questions?
That is awesome. Any questions, comments, board members?
Just real quick. Obviously, excited about the working with EduPoint and all that. My question is as we move, we know it's coming this fall, and you talked about the training. Is in the quest to leave no teacher, no teacher left behind, kind of a thing in this, because they're right there having to work with this program, work with the parents and everything. Is there anything that we've done that we've kind of learned from the past, or strategies this time, so that when we go into the fall, instead of going, wow, that was something, instead of ensure that we have a better experience? So
that's a great.
Usually, anytime you have a technology, it's just painful for everyone, and we've gone around this loop a couple times. I'm just wondering if there's a different approach this time that we're taking.
That's a great question. One of the things, and with the leadership of Ron Mayberry specifically, is they're touching the sandbox more. And that's part of the online module, us going out to schools. They're also part of the process at a greater level than they have been in the past moving forward. Another one of the lessons that I very much appreciate about EduPoint is, as we ask and task them to do things, they're very firm on saying what they can do and not over-promising.
Good.
And what they will say to us is, yes, we can do that, but not in this current version. And so what that tells me is that they want both of us to be successful. They want our district to be successful as well as their company to be successful. So they don't want to have a place where they say, yeah, we're going to do that. Then we share out, oh, they're going to do that, and then it doesn't get done. But they do say we'll be able to do that on the next iteration, and then we problem solve it and we go through it. And that's been the really cool thing about the conference calls on a weekly basis, is this is our need, this is our concern, things like that, and how do we improve it. Did you want to say something more to that?
So one of the other things I want to highlight on our Thursday meetings, our teachers are actually getting to participate through a GoToMeeting login, so they can do that from the comfort of their classroom and don't have to scramble to get over to us. And they're providing their feedback through an instant message feature that's in there, and we're incorporating it right live into that. And the other piece that I think is really important for our teachers is, while they're going to be signed up for one event for sure, we've created enough events that literally the vast majority could take 2 sessions if they want. If they want extra training, they can go to 2 sessions of this. They could take the online class in addition. So in a way, they could do 3 sessions. So we're definitely providing them lots of opportunity. Our hope in August is that teachers will spend in their half day, a portion of that will be spent in the sandbox, but another portion of that's live, hands-on, in their live classroom that they're gonna start with, so they can start building out stuff within that class, whether it's activities or just setting up their grade book, putting a couple assignments in, whatever that is. It's going to be live in that, so they'll walk away already having some of their day one work done, and that's a lesson learned from past too. So I think we're very excited about those.
Yeah, and along with the increased transparency, I mean, anybody at any time can come and talk to Ron or I or our team and say, what are you doing with this? Whether it's a principal or teacher or coach or whomever, we're being as transparent as we possibly can on this and walking them through that, because a lot of times when they come and ask us about that, they have an idea, and we want to listen to that idea and process that idea and see if it makes sense.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, and definitely appreciate the parent and student engagement in the process. Anything else?
Just a comment. I've had some comments with their discussions with teachers. They're excited about what you're doing because they've seen some of the information coming out, and compared to what they have, they are all excited about what this program and this opportunity is, that they can really get the word out. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a group of students, the Enterprise Honor Choir, who had a delayed bus, and so they spent about an hour waiting for a bus, and they've been staying out in the hallway waiting patiently for us. And so we're going to take a 5-minute break and allow them to come in and entertain and share their great work. We call this meeting back to order. Thank you again, students, for coming. And we will next have Director Barney as a presentation.
Yes, actually what I'd like to do, we did have our elementary track championship meet over the weekend, and I'd like to introduce at this time Chris Andrews, who is basically our meet director. So please.
Thank you. Thank you, Board. Mr. New is still here, I hope, but I never had the opportunity to stand up here to talk to the board before, and I've always had the pleasure of sitting back there watching Mr. Hill do it. Mr. Everett Hill used to run the program before I was there, help with that, and I came into this 23 years ago. I signed my first contract, and 22 years ago I started coaching at Mirror Lake Elementary. 4 years ago, Mirror Lake was able to have a successful run at the championships level and kept a few schools out of bay for a while. But now that I have been asked to step into Mr. Hill's role, and I'm glad and honored to do it, those schools have started to succeed again, so I guess Mirror Lake's out of the way. Anyways, I could say so much more. I have so much fun with these people. This program is in its 41st year, and it does not happen without the support, obviously, of the school board, but particularly it doesn't work without the parents, the coaches, the community, the Kiwanis, and the endless hours that everybody puts into making this happen. And so it is my pleasure tonight to introduce to you 5 schools who have finished in the top 5 in the point standings. And we just have a small token that they can keep at their school and share with their students. And if the coaches are here, that'd be great. Usually students are here, but it's been a long meeting, so I think some of them went home. But if they happen to be here, please come on up as well with your coaches. And we'd like to start off with the coaches from Valhalla coming in 5th place with our Danica Fuller and Heather Anderson. And I don't know if they're here or not, but we will make sure that they get their trophy. We'll get it delivered. In 4th place this year was Woodmont, and pleasantly to see that my friends Becca and Troy did pretty well, and I don't see them here either. Green Gables came in 3rd place, Coach Evan Godsiff. And Sherwood Forest, oh boy, Sherwood Forest. That's the school that I've always had to go up against, and I'm so happy to see Ryan and Sherry come back and do it again, and we hope they come and coach again. And they came in 2nd place. So. And I would also like to introduce our champions this year. It is Illahee Middle School. They don't have 5th graders in their program. They don't have the advantage of 3rd, 4th graders as well. Their team was just phenomenal this year, and they took 1st place by scoring almost 200 points. So congratulations to Chris Lascano and Leanne Stafford. On a final note, we have several athletes from this meet going on to the State Hershey Championships, and we have 5 relay teams between Illahee and Sherwood Forest that are hoping to stay together and represent us well at State Hershey. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next we will move into official public comments. And we will start with Jay Bennett.
Good evening, Director, Superintendent New, Deputy Superintendent Davidson, and staff. Good evening. My name is Jay Bennett. I am a board director, a board member of the Federal Way affiliate of Communities and Schools, and I was asked to stop by and provide you kind of a year-end update as we wrap up the school year. And I am in a celebratory mood tonight. I have many things to celebrate at Communities and Schools and here in Federal Way, and a couple of those are we're celebrating our 130 mentor-mentee matches this year as we end this year on a high note. We're celebrating the work, the talents of our school outreach coordinators as they access resources to provide to students and teachers to make sure the kids were ready and able to learn unimpeded. And we're certainly celebrating our 7 high school graduates this year that communities and schools had involvement with in various forms over the last several years. So we're very, very excited, and on behalf of the board members, we thank them and congratulate their families as well. And lastly, I would celebrate some individuals here tonight, part of your staff. Mark Davidson, Diane Turner, Carol Matsui, Mary Asplund, and last but never the least is Aaron Jones. All of these individuals representing you as staff, and I had a chance to work with this past year in my professional capacity, and I just wanted to celebrate them and thank them for the work that they did and making my job much, much easier as a community services director for the manager for the city of Federal Way. So thank you very much. Just very quickly also now a word from a commercial word from our sponsors. Friday is the community schools breakfast, at Weyerhaeuser beginning at 7:30 to 8:30. We invite you. There's still some tickets available. Jump on our website and you can snag those up. And beginning tonight at midnight through midnight tomorrow night, if you're going to Seattle Foundations, give big. If you wish to help communities and schools celebrate again next year, any donation made to Community Schools Federal Way, Seattle Foundation will be able to stretch that, and your donation would be able to do more with us. So we invite you to do that. Stay up past midnight tonight. Jump on that website, and we invite you. Or wake up in the morning. It's okay, either way. So thank you very much for your time answering questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, we will have Charles Hoff.
Well, at the last board meeting, we had a little discussion about scholarships. I've managed to get quite a few good ones this year. Just got a young man, $48,000 to go to the University of Rochester per year. I made an offer to help some of the kids here. I heard nothing from you. I would assume you've had more interest in that than you did. Now, while we're on the subject of schools, I thought I'd share with you some of the ratings that have come out in the past few weeks. I'll refresh your memory with the State Board of Education, and this is now, of course, legislation which may or may not pass, but here are the grades that currently the State Board of Education offers for our 4 high schools. I see no reason to be happy about those. U.S. News has put out a fine dissertation now on schools throughout the nation. You'll notice that while we have some reasonable AP participation rates, our pass rates are not very good at 3 of them. And on a college readiness basis, 3 of our schools, again, are well under 20%. Looks like we have some work to do, but we don't seem to want to discuss that here. And finally, Washington Post puts out rankings of schools. As you can see, these are rankings in the United States of those schools which have at least 1 AP or IB or Cambridge exam per senior. And as you can see, some of our schools are not doing very well there either. So there are some topics that I would think would be worth discussions at school board meetings, but they don't seem to come up here. I wonder why. Thank you.
Okay, next we will have Sherry Kerr.
Good evening. Thank you so much for letting us come tonight. I'm Sherry Kerr, and I'm the teacher of the GRADS program at Federal Way High School. And GRADS is a teen parenting class. It stands for Graduation, Reality, and Dual Skills. I'm honored to be here tonight with one of my students and her son Wesley, and also I have my wonderful mentor Marianne Yamaguchi with me as well to help out. We're here to impress upon you the importance of having a child care center in the Federal Way High School when the building is rebuilt. This is the first year that we've offered the GRADS program. I have 15 students, 3 of those are fathers. 2 come from other schools in the district. We're having huge success. Our seniors, because they've been able to do some credit retrieval and things, are able to graduate on time. We have some super seniors that we're not so sure because of childcare issues that they would be able to graduate on even a year late, and they're going to be able to graduate. It's not surprising that 90% of my students in my GRADS class have mothers that were teens when they gave birth. We're trying to give these students the skills they need to improve this cycle of teen births and make sure that they get a diploma and that they can offer themselves and their children the lives that they deserve. Here are some of the things I need you to remember, okay, about why we need a child care center at Federal Way High School. One of the most convincing facts about having a child care center on campus is that it affects 2 generations. Most teen parents tend not to move out of the area in which they grew up, and their children will be entering our school system in 5 years. Having an on-site center will give the district the ability to possibly decrease the services required by that child when he or she enters the school system. Currently, there aren't any South End child care centers in high schools. Having a child care center in the high school will provide a learning lab for the grad students and the other students in the school. The psychology and child development classes could come and learn about development through observation and participation. Foreign language students could come and teach us some songs in foreign languages. English students could write children's novels and stories and share them with the students. Teens will also have a place to learn about appropriate discipline. Having a child care center in the school will also open the possibility for grants and programs that right now the school is not available to take part in. We want motherhood to be honored and childhood to be hopeful. Allison has a few thoughts, and her son Wesley, who unfortunately had 3 shots today. So.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Allison Susetic, and this is my son Wesley. Federal Way High School should have a daycare that students with a child can use for free during the school year. Daycare can be expensive if you don't qualify for DSH's child care, and most students don't have transportation to a daycare. DSH's child care can be a confusing process, I have learned from my experiences. In September of last year, I applied for it and was told by DSHS that Wesley can start going to the daycare and that they'll approve it. 3 months later, they tell me that I owe $900 to the daycare because it wasn't approved yet. I also had to miss 2 months of school because I had to get it approved. And I got really behind in my credits and almost wasn't able to graduate this year, but with a lot of hard work, I'm graduating in June. Having a daycare in the school would decrease dropout rates, give teen parents a hope of success, and be a nice change to Federal Way High School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Allison was actually up next, so she had her time. And next we have...
I just want one.
Oh, okay.
Can I say 3 paragraphs and be out of here? My name's Marianne Yamaguchi, and I've been working with Sherry Kerr this year, and she asked me to come and talk a little bit about childcare in the schools. I ran 2 childcare centers for Seattle Public Schools, and I ran student childcare at Shoreline Community College. As you prepare to think about building this new Federal Way High School, this is the perfect time to think about if you're going to put a child care facility in your building, because state requirements for child care require many kinds of things like sinks and small toilets and several entrances and exits, all of which are very expensive to retrofit. And the time to think about it is as you build your building and you're looking at how you're allocating your space. Today I went to buy a card for somebody who had a baby, and there was this sweet card that said, "It takes a village to raise a child." And then when you opened it on the inside, what it said is, "Except they never tell you the name of the village or how to get there." And I think that one of the things we all have to think about is where is that village and how do kids get there? Thanks.
Thank you. And next we have, and also Marion, you had a sheet as well. Next we have Cindy Hernandez.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is all for us. I'm sorry. The others two weren't able to.
Oh, okay.
So we won't have Cindy Hernandez. And we
Or
won't
Mary
have
Carmen?
No.
Okay, perfect. Well, that concludes our public comments time. We will now allow our superintendent to have some comments this evening.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Good evening, Board. Welcome to May. It's unbelievable to me that we only have a year left, or a month left to go in this school year. And as you can see tonight, it's been a fantastic school year. As the work that was presented tonight, I really want to thank Ron Mayberry and Dave Davis and the team of TOSAs that Ron brought forward with their work in the digital device implementation and the improvements that we've made in the grade book. So all I want to say tonight is I want to congratulate our teachers and our school nurses, because last week was National Nurse Appreciation Week and National Teacher Appreciation Week. And you know, never in the period of public education in America have our staff been asked to do more with less. And I just really want to take a moment to say thanks to all of them for the great work that they do for our kids every day. That's it for tonight.
Thank you. We will have board member comments, and we will start with Director Peters.
Thought you looked my direction.
You looked ready. You looked ready.
Good evening, everyone. Great night tonight. It was great having that halftime show with the elementary students from Enterprise. What a great treat that was. Yeah, it's been a great time of year. It's been fun to see as this spring, just celebrating some of the academic successes in our schools, some of the sports things that have been going on and the successes we've been experiencing there. We've been doing our school board recognition nights. We've had 3 of them so far. One of the highlights for me is when we were over at Lakota the other night and hearing about their mentoring program there and the men that have stepped up there. And from what I understand, 50% reduction in some of their school disciplinary things going on there. And it's just something I think as a district just to look into more. Obviously, we heard tonight from communities and schools, and you know, they're a great partnership. But it was just interesting to see just the caliber of gentlemen that had stepped up at that school, and including the football coach and that, and the great effect it's had there with mentoring young men there, and what it's done for disciplinary stuff. So looking to hear more about that. And I just saw Andy Hobbs walk through here, but it was nice a couple weeks ago to when opening up the Federal Way Mirror and have right there on the front page an insert about We Day. And I've had many people in our community come up and just ask me more questions about that. And it was just great to be able to see that there, to get the word out about that. And there's the great projects that are taking place. Students are getting excited about, you know, helping people on the other side of the world, you know, getting clean drinking water so they can be able to go to school. And just opening up the horizons of not only just our students, but our parents and our community to how can we get involved, how can we partner together, and really see awesome things happen not only here, but abroad. Very excited about that. Advancing Leadership, we heard Abhishek was one of our recipients tonight from Advancing Leadership Youth. The Advancing Leadership program, though, is this Saturday at they're meeting at the Farmers Market for their class project, and what they're going to be promoting is, let me get it right, it's the 5K fundraiser for Break the Chains of Human Trafficking. They're partnering with Federal Way Coalition Against Trafficking, and they're doing a 5K run, walk, bike, scoot, however you want to move to get there in the 5K, do it. Encourage the community, come on out, support that. It's going to be a great time. Starting at 9 o'clock is when they're going to start doing the check-ins. 10:30 is when the event kicks off. Should be a whole lot of fun. It was also fun the other day. I had a meeting over at a coffee shop, and one of our former Federal Way grads, Paige Edmondson, was there, and she showed me her video that she's been working on. She got an award for her work writing an essay about students getting involved in the democratic process. And she's got this video that's from this award-winning essay that's now into a 22-minute film, and she's just put together a 3-minute film that she has on. And if you want to check it out, you can go to lookingatdemocracy.com. And up till this Thursday, people can vote for that video. It's a 3-minute video. And what it covers is the student involvement at Federal Way High School for the levy this past year, and how students got involved, and how it was eye-opening for them to not just be a spectator but a participant in the democratic process. And amazingly done video that this young lady has done, and I encourage you to check it out, vote for it. If you vote for this video right now, I believe there's some grant money that it's competing for that they're going to use to put back in the school system here in Federal Way. But just another Federal Way grad that's doing some great stuff, getting involved in the world, and I was excited about that. So I believe that is it for my statements tonight, and it's been a great meeting.
Thank you very much. All right, next we have Director Wilson.
I think it's called Reinventing the Patriot is the name of
That is correct.
the clip. So if you're interested, you could also Google that and do vote. So it feels like it's been forever since we've been together, but there's been lots that's been happening. And I want to share that in April, I had a chance to visit Access Night and Partnership 101 at Valhalla Elementary, and where over 30 parents came together and not only had access to the school in the evening to help with homework and to get information they needed to support their children, but then also spent the evening there and did a Partnership 101 workshop, which is part of the offerings that is put out by the School Family Community Partnership Office and Therese Moore. And an incredibly engaging evening. Families who were English speakers and non-English speakers really developing plans for themselves and for their children, and understanding the role that they play in being an active partner in their child's educational process. The other thing that never ceases to amaze me, but amazes me every day when I find that parents are not, they don't know that there are things that are free. And when we find parents who struggle to put food on the table and to pay for things and not realize that there are resources and supports that not only the school has but the community has for them, and that they have children that have been in systems and in communities for years and not know that there's something called free. That is the kinds of thing that this workshop does, is it provides information and resources for parents. Also attended the parent forum at Tukwila at Foster High School with Director Griffin, and on April 20th, where they had over 1,000 parents from all over the school districts in the South County area come together and really learn more about resources and supports and what's available again to them when they're accessing the educational system. And in the afternoon, they held bridging sessions district by district, and so Director Griffin and I were able to spend some time with a group of parents and really hear from them what questions they might have, what challenges they might be facing, and what information that they were really interested in sharing with district and the system. And then I think the other thing that was probably the most amazing thing for me was on April 25th, I was invited to Todd Beamer High School and to an event called If You Really Knew Me, Celebrating Our Differences. And it was a group of sophomores who had sent an email and invited me to see whether I would help facilitate a table. And the purpose of the evening was to bring people together to discuss issues regarding bullying, tolerance, and acceptance. They encourage people to come, to be open-minded, to meet new friends, and to enjoy the activities. And I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into when I walked into Beamer, but I walked into a room full of tables that were beautifully set up and a group of sophomore students who were leaders that decided they needed to do something about some things, and so they decided they were going to make a plan. And by the end of the evening, we had 60 people that were in the room together, and we experienced special performances, we experienced keynote speakers, we experienced table discussions, we experienced an activity called If You Really Knew Me, we experienced a gallery walk, we experienced conversations with each other, and a final special performance by the very own Todd Beamer dance troupe that was here, who had just come back from winning their awards. And I told that group of students that I needed to call them out, and I'm going to do that. The group of students from Todd Beamer who spent the evening and really planned an incredible time were Alvia Rima and Jaeger Barnes, Demora Gostin, Latino Club members Raul Aguilar, Martha Meza, Cesar Alvarado, Mariah Malo, BSU members Deja Flavors, Kendra Stevenson, Dyronette Cater, and Sierra Cotton, and Alex and Emily from the Arthur Murray Dance Studio, and Officer Stray, who also is a ballroom dancer, and an ex-Decatur student who is a graduate of Decatur, who is also a ballroom dancer, who came to talk about how because of his love of dance, he was a victim of bullying, and he got up on stage and started to dance, and then that kind of started off the whole evening. I had incredible opportunity to have conversation with Jig, with Kendra, with Ty, and with Nicholas, and with Sierra, talking about things that meant a lot to them and experience they'd had at school. And I would say if you were ever invited by a group of students to come have a conversation, you should take them up on their offer, because it was quite an event and quite an evening, and their school staff should be proud. I will say for the grads presentation, I hear loud and clear that we have young learners, and those young learners are often babies of young learners as well, and have had many conversations and have started to think about what that might look like, and how, again, in our focus on early learning, we not only think about children who are 4, but we think about children who are before 4 and where they're at, and that our goal is not to encourage nor to say that it's a great thing to do to have children when you're young, but when young men and women find themselves in this situation, in order to really impact them and make a difference for themselves and for their kids, we can't discount that we have to think about the support we need to provide as well. And then I guess the only other thing I would say is, Mr. Hoff, that while I see the citations and I've seen them a number of times, I would continue to say that that the numbers you put on the document camera have no citation, and that there are numbers, but there is no context, nor is there a place for one to go back and to explore for themselves where they come from. So that's all I need to say. Thanks.
Next, we have Director Martin.
Okay. I would ditto the remarks by Director Peterson regarding the board recognition nights. It has been an interesting several nights. I've enjoyed them immensely. And as far as our grads program, well, I'm a product of a mother who had 3 children by the time she was 18. So I can understand some of the issues and problems that she went through, and of course, getting into school myself and being bullied because of situations that came up. I can understand, the needs for these types of programs. The funding is, of course, always the key issue. I'd love to be able to put programs, but we got to make sure they're sustainable, that we can provide them once we get them in. So definitely look at those. Just a couple of things in regards. I'll just go ahead right into some legislative pieces. As you know, that the special session started again on Monday. And of course, their main purpose is budget, 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 but they always play with other things. So who knows what will happen. Supposed to end, be no longer than 30 days. It'd be nice to get the budget done in a week and get it done and send them home so we don't have to pay them anymore. But it'll probably go the full 30 days with our luck. Interesting, though, when they look at budgets at the Washington Policy Center and the Beacon Hill Institute, they actually examined the House budget and found that well, it's proposing a $1.1 billion in tax increases, and as a result, there will be a loss of 9,800 private jobs, an increase of 5,200 government jobs. We still lose a net loss of almost 4,600 jobs for next year alone. I don't know what they'll do. But on a good note, Governor Inslee did sign House Bill 1642, and that is encouraging all districts to adopt an academic acceleration policy for high school students similar to what we have here in Federal Way. Didn't require it, but it did encourage them to do so, and I hope that other districts will take on that opportunity to allow other students who may not have had the opportunity and close the achievement gap and opportunity gap. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your sharing. And I will also ditto the board recognition nights are always empowering to see how our community comes together surrounding on behalf of our students. I'm looking forward to the most exciting day of the year, and that's graduation, which is coming up pretty soon. On April 18th, I was asked and had an honor to be able to go to Sequoia Middle School and listen to the American history presentations of the students there, and how they selected topics around American history that they were able to translate into current experiences and bring to life for themselves, as well as the people who had the opportunity to go and listen. Also, since it does feel like a long time since we've been together, wow. Also in that time, I attended the Teach for America block party, and of course, we have some teachers there. There was a larger number of teachers than I knew, and I don't remember what that number was. I thought we had like 2 or 3, but we have quite a few teachers from Teach for America in our school district, and so very inspired to see people who have set their hearts and their passions to work with our students here in this district. And then lastly, I attended the Stand for Children luncheon and had the opportunity to be re-inspired by Jeffrey Canada. Every time I hear him, I'm deeply inspired that, and this time I left feeling even more inspired that the work that we are doing in Federal Way is the right work, and that we are seeing gains and achievements by our students, and we're going to continue to see more. And Stand for Children, we thank them because they did support the academic acceleration policy movement, which, as Director Barney shared, passed and was signed off by our governor. So look forward to seeing more school districts in our state be courageous around the work of having all students be participating in rigorous programs and having the supports for them to be successful in that work. And with that, I will move into a resolution for Arts Education Month. And Director Wilson is going to read that resolution, and then we're going to see if our board members support it.
All right.
This evening.
So this is resolution number 2013-09, a resolution by the Board of Education of the Federal Way School District to support the arts and declare May 2013 as Arts Education Month. Whereas the arts, including dance, music, theater, and visual arts, are defined as a core subject in Washington State's definition of basic education and considered an essential component of a complete and balanced education for all students, and whereas learning in and through the arts enables students to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, imagination and creativity, discipline, alternative ways to communicate and express feelings and ideas, and cross-cultural understanding, which supports academic success across the curriculum as well as personal growth outside the classroom. And whereas imagination and creativity are increasingly understood as critical capacities needed for success in the 21st century workforce, and whereas the arts can transform our schools into havens of creativity and exploration, places where students want to learn, teachers want to teach, and all members of the learning community are more engaged and motivated, and whereas high-quality school-based arts education involves a wide range of partners, including school boards, district administrators, educators, parents, artists, and art organizations, community members, and local businesses and organizations whose collective endeavors towards equitable provision of arts learning for all students we celebrate and promote, and whereas we applaud the efforts and dedication of arts educators and advocates around the state, and we call for school and community leaders to continue to broaden and strengthen their commitment to provide arts education for every student in every school for resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that the Federal Way Public Schools Board of Education do hereby proclaim May 2013 as Arts Education Month, dated this 14th day of May 2013.
Thank you.
And Madam Vice President, I would like to move to adopt Resolution 2013-09, approving May 2013 as Arts Education Month.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, board members? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
None opposed? Carries. Thank you. Please make sure you sign that, board members, so it's official. We will have a standards-based education update from Marie Verhaar.
Good evening, Vice President Griffin, members of the board, Superintendent New, Deputy Superintendent Davidson, members of the audience, and those who are viewing from home. My name is Marie Verhaar. I am the Executive Director of Teaching for Learning, and tonight I am here joined by two of my colleagues from our department, Ms. Angie Neville, who you had the honor of hearing earlier. Angie is our P12 English Language Arts Specialist, teacher on special assignment, and Ms. Lindsay Butcher is our P12 Mathematics teacher on special assignment. So tonight we are here to provide you with an update to share with you some of the work that has been taking place over the last year, actually, and mostly the past 4 or 5 months. Director Davis shared with you a little bit as he was talking about the standards-based, the grading, talked about some of the standards that have been revised and the work that has been taking place. So tonight we are going to share with you these highlights of our progress. First, we'd like to talk to you a little bit more about our Common Core transition. We'd like to share with you our Power Standard revision work, the development of supporting resources that we are currently underway for our new Common Core state standards in English Language Arts and Mathematics, the collaboration that has taken place to support this work, not just TFL, but other members as well, and then some of the next steps for our work. I guess this is my slide too, sorry. So what you're going to hear tonight is work that has been completed by our teachers, led by folks in our department, but once again, as you've heard in past years, this work has been done by the incredible teaching force in Federal Way Public Schools. Again, this year we have had over 350 teachers participating in the identification of priority standards for Common Core and the revision of standards for all of our other content. That includes preschool through 12th grade, as well as pretty much all of our career and technical education teachers have been involved in this process. And the total is over 350, but it's close in terms of the numbers that we could pull for tonight.
Good evening again. I'm going to talk about the Common Core transition. When the transition team came together last year, they designed this year to be a year of learning, a year of immersion. And I think that we've done a pretty good job of immersing our staff in Common Core. To that end, we have an ELA and math team that was put together, a group of teachers, coaches, and administrators who came together to look at priority standards and to look at the Common Core and figure out which ones we really wanted to raise to the top and call our priorities, those that we want to stress and assess. Because what we know is that although there's less than the original GLEs, there's still a lot of them. And so in order to really get our students where they need to be, we needed to prioritize those. And so again, we pulled together a group of staff from preschool through grade 12, all in the same room, all looking at the standards, using a process to go through and figure out which ones were the priorities. We're calling power standards in Common Core priority standards because what we know is that it's not about just teaching those few power standards, it's about teaching all of the standards, but there are some that kind of are more important than others. And we think about it, you'll see on this slide there is a picture of a fence with posts and the slats that go in between, and we think about the priority standards as being those posts and the supporting standards as being the slats that kind of connect it all together. So we've done that, P through 12 in both ELA and math. In addition to that, we have been doing lots of professional development with our principals, with our instructional coaches, kindergarten teachers, librarians, providing schools with turnkey trainings, and those groups of people have gone back to their buildings and done training with their staff in the buildings, looking at the major shifts that we're going to have to make as we transition to the Common Core. We've been collaborating with not only other districts, but also with other states, working with PSESD to look at what's the best way to transition to offer our teachers and our children what they need to be ready for Common Core next year. And in addition to that, we've made sure that we have representatives from all of our schools on these teams, so in one capacity or another. On the other side, those subjects that aren't ELA and math, we also have been working at revising what we have in place and put in place a couple years ago with SBE. So we collected feedback from teachers out there about the current power standards for content areas. We took that feedback, put together teams of people in all the different content areas, and reviewed the feedback, revised the power standards, thinking about this idea that we're going to be grading at the power standard level versus the learning target level, making sure that we have what we need to encompass what needs to be taught. Sent it back out again, that accordion process like we used before, sent out the revisions, got additional feedback, came back together one more time to look at that and make final revisions before posting them now in our district site. Altogether, it's been over 300 courses that we have looked at power standards and did some revision work on.
Good evening. We've talked a little bit about the standards for the Common Core in math and ELA, and also the content standards and all the other content areas. But what we have been working on in addition to revising all of our standards is the development of rubrics. And so what a rubric is, a priority standard level rubric, is a general guideline for teachers to understand what meeting looks like. Since we've started this standards-based education journey, we've had this conversation about what does meeting that standard look like. And so we're in the process of creating resources to help create a consistent message on what meeting that priority standard looks like. These rubrics are made by teachers for teachers and are on a 4-3-2-1 scale. So why do we have rubrics? Like I said before, we've been talking about what does meeting look like, and so this is the answer to that question. It's to help develop consistency across all the courses so that the 3rd grade standard at one elementary school is the same all the way through the other 22. And it's also to communicate to all our stakeholders, our parents, our teachers, our students, our administrators, our district staff are all talking about the same standard, the same level of achievement for what does meeting look like.
In addition to the priority standards and the priority standard rubrics, we also have done some put together additional resources for our staff. For example, our groups are coming together and we're putting together something called a module map, kind of like a curriculum map, but a way to take all of the standards at a grade level, kind of parcel them out throughout the year and think about how do they all fit together to provide this cohesive learning environment that our students can make connections and really see those as meaningful to their education. In addition to that, we have teams putting integrated units together. We've got GLAD units being created and highly capable units being created. Number of people are coming together to do some work around putting integrated units, integrating content in particular with ELA, and also have, as I said earlier, put together turnkey trainings, professional development that will not only happen this year, but we're looking at lasting through August and then on into next year.
It was very important to us that we have built the capacity for this implementation of Common Core. And we worked very hard to make sure we had a multi-tiered level of support. We have asked each school, preschool through 12th grade, to identify a lead ELA or language arts teacher and a lead mathematics teacher. Now we know for elementary, their teachers teach everything, so we asked principals to help us and coaches to help us identify a teacher who would like to receive extra training in the area of mathematics and language arts. Those teachers, along with the instructional coaches and the principals, were brought to a summit not too long ago where they received an extensive amount of training in order for them to take it back to their building and tailor it to the needs of their staff. So as Angie shared a little bit, we've also created professional development for our administrators that has been delivered at their meetings, as well as some after-school optional sessions. And none of this would be possible without the work of the TFL lead team. Many brains, credible leaders have come together, teachers on our team who have helped to craft this work, pull it together, and then take it to our teams of teachers who have been working, writing sub-plans, being out of their classrooms 2 to 3 days. We are truly indebted to these teachers for the time that they've spent with us. But they know the importance of high-quality documents. They know the importance of high-quality tools, and those things take time. So you're going to hear in a few moments about some of our next steps. But I guarantee you that pretty much any day in July you'd like to pop into the TFL ESC area, you will see teams of teachers up there working almost the whole month of July. We have a lot of work to complete, and Lindsay's going to share a little bit of that with you now.
So we're really excited with the implementation of Common Core that we're not in this alone. So for the first time, we're able to collaborate with not only other school districts in our state, but also across the country to help develop some resources and modify resources and collaborate to create some quality instructional materials for teachers and students. So in June, July, August, and beyond, we'll continue to unpack the ELA and math priority standards to develop a deeper understanding of what those standards are. and what students are expected to know, understand, and do. I talked about rubrics. We'll be not only developing rubrics in math and ELA, but also the other content areas as well. Angie spoke a little bit about the module maps in math and ELA, and again, those are kind of synonymous with curriculum maps, and basically is an outline of instructional units. We also have, we're also working on creating and refining our integrated units. So we talked a little bit about GLAD, but also integrating the Common Core standards with some of our technical subjects, and integrating math and science, social studies, language arts, all of the above. We're also looking at developing assessment tasks and finding other assessment tasks for the Common Core, for math and ELA, for other content areas as well. As we know, the Smarter Balance assessment is coming, and we want to condition our students to be prepared for the type of performance tasks that will be asked of them for that assessment. And like I mentioned before, we will be creating rubrics for all content areas. So we're really excited about having a consistent understanding of what meeting looks like across the board.
In addition to Angie and Lindsay that are with me tonight, we have an incredible team, and I'm not going to read all of their names because I know you know most of them, but it is important for me as the executive director of the department to recognize the talent, the time, and the energy that these individuals put into this work. So I want to commend them for the time they will put in over the summer, as well as Director Mayberry's team will be putting in work many hours over the summer as well. So with that, we would invite you to ask any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments, board members?
Just want to say thank you to your team and to you, Director Verhaar, for all your work in this. And I'm so glad that we're at where we're at. And there's so many districts out there that they're not going to know what hit them when this kind of comes into play. But the work that has been done with standards-based education and everything has really set us up. And I'm excited to see, as this launches and we move into Common Core, just how we're able to really ride the wave where maybe some other districts are really going to be drowning there for a while, and how we can they'll probably be coming to us asking for help. And, since we've been in that place and you guys have put so much time and effort into it, I think it's going to pay dividends. So thank you for all that you guys have done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we've come a long way in a very short period of time.
We have.
And it's intentional work, so thank you.
And the exciting thing for us is, like Angie mentioned or Lindsay mentioned, I can't remember, that this is year 33 for me in this profession, and it is incredible to see that finally we are able to do some sharing across districts, across states, and that is truly an exciting thing. Now, we also know that, like we share with our teachers, if you put in ELA into Google, you might as well just, spend the next 4 days or 5 days going through it all. So we want to help our teachers to be conscientious consumers. So we've already put together a great deal of resources to support the teachers, because we don't want them to have to spend that time out there. The great thing is that we know there's the right way, the wrong way, and the federal way, right? So we also know that even though we see these resources from Delaware or Kentucky or wherever they come from, we also know that in Federal Way, we want to make sure they're right for our kids. So I want to assure you that we're just not saying, that looks really good, let's just take those Delaware documents. We spend a great deal of time tearing those apart, ensuring that they are going to support the work we're doing here. But it is truly a great opportunity to be able to share and spread the wealth, so to speak. So thank you.
Thank you. And the next exciting part of our evening is our budget update from Sally McLean. She's like looking around like, what? Yes. If we had confetti, we'd throw it at you.
Look, it's still there. It has a really short title.
recap. So, good evening, Vice President Griffin, members of the board, Superintendent New, our staff, parents, and community. I am here this evening to sort of wrap up what we know about budget this evening prior to the superintendent's recommendation, which is still scheduled to be released at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. As we have talked about since January, we've touched on a variety of different kinds of budget components. We've talked a little bit about our projected enrollment and the impact that has on building budgets in school districts when you really have a certain level of fixed costs that you have to sustain, even when you're going through periods of slightly declining enrollment. Fund balance, of course, we know we have been spending more money than we have been receiving during this period of Great Recession. So as we look at moving forward, we have to pay attention to what we're doing with fund balance. Some people equate that to savings, but once you've spent it, it's gone. And then more commonly in regards to budget components, you think about your local levy component, you talk about your federal funding component, and of course state funding and what we're potentially anticipating in regards to the McCleary down payment. I'll touch briefly on most of these topics tonight. Here's a picture you saw before. This is a picture of the changes in our average annual full-time equivalents. Remember, students are not counted as students. They're converted into average annual full-time equivalents, which is a function of how much time they spend with us every day and how much time they spend with us throughout the entire school year. You can see our average annual FTE kind of goes up and down, but the general trajectory continues to be at a slightly declining rate. The fund balance picture, which we probably haven't looked at for a little while, has three components in it. The yellow column is reflective of the budgeted amount that we have in what is now referred to as committed to minimum fund balance. The blue line is where we have actually ended the year, or the blue bar, and then the green line is a reflection of total fund balance, because again, under state accounting manual procedures, you have a lot of different kinds of fund balance buckets that you have to place money into, and you can see that our other fund balance buckets are also being depleted. Another way to look at this when you think about fund balance is you're spending, if your fund balance is declining, you're spending more money than you're receiving. If your fund balance is growing, you're spending less money than you're receiving. So during that same time frame in 2004, 2005, we've had years that have been on both sides of that zero line. It's really difficult, virtually impossible, to have revenues and expenditures exactly equal each other in a budget of our size. But again, as we look at moving forward into 13-14, I'll be looking at a recommendation to the superintendent, which he may or may not forward to you, that includes a little less spending of fund balance as we move forward. Hey, it's just me. Federal sequestration, again, we've talked about the fact that at least for 2013-14, we're attempting to manage federal sequestration by maximizing carryover wherever possible. We know some of our federal funds don't allow carryover in some of our federal programs. So for example, Head Start is not allowed to have a carryover, so this strategy won't work for Head Start. The same is true in our AmeriCorps federal funding grants and within our Air Force JROTC, and you're certainly used to seeing our Air Force JROTC introducing the colors at every one of our board members. To the extent possible, we'll be looking at program modifications, reductions beginning in 14-15. And then, just that lovely little reminder that for every dollar we lose in federal funding, we also end up losing 28 cents in local levy. So the federal sequestration conversation is scheduled to be about a 10-year conversation unless we see some resolution from Congress prior to that. You'll recall last time we talked a little bit about implementing the McCleary decision and having some guiding principles for the district as we look at what that means for us. We talked about looking at providing relief to taxpayers and parents. We talk about a guiding principle of being able to move towards market midpoint with our compensation. You'll recall that's been a fairly standard practice for us, but that has been suspended for a period of time now. And that, of course, anything that we're doing, any and all restorations or enhancements must be affordable and sustainable. So a couple of things in regards to implementing McCleary that we haven't really talked about is there are some big issues in the new McCleary funding formula, which came out of Substitute House Bill 2661, that the 1977 Basic Education Act implemented some serious discrepancies in individual school district funding, which have not yet been resolved in the McCleary decision. One of those is related to compensation and the underlying LEAP salary schedule, which drives differing amounts of funding to school districts based on what was happening in that school district in the 70s. And another big area that has not yet been addressed has to do with local levy lids and the accompanying local effort assistance. So those are two really big components. I mean, well, it looks like three, but local levy lids and local effort assistance are tied together. Those are two big areas that the legislature still needs to respond to in regards to the full implementation of 2661. And of course, while once upon a time we had a phase-in plan that we could count on, we know the Great Recession actually had some significant impacts on that phase-in. And you've seen this slide from me now very many times, where theoretically in 2012-13, or the year that we're currently in, these four major components of McCleary all required new funding to begin. None of that, of course, happened in 2012-13, and is now all under consideration for the current biennium, where we're still awaiting that final state budget for the 2014-2015 the 13-14, 14-15 school years. Again, as you know, the 105-day session is now running into a 30-day special session, again, to continue to focus on budget. But when, as Director Barney mentioned, the legislature adjourns into a special, or convenes into a special session, anything is possible. I did update this slide, which I still know is kind of a difficult slide to weave through, because the last time we met and talked about this, we didn't have the House budget. So I wanted to take those, the major components that you saw on the other slide, which are also supplemented by a couple of things, and lay out where the common pieces are and where the not common pieces are. So when we talk about state-funded full-day K, or in our world we tend to call that all-day K, the numbers of students being served in a full-day kindergarten capacity vary widely between the governor's budget, the Senate budget, and the House budget. Currently, 22% of the kindergarten students in the state of Washington are being served in full-day kindergarten programs. The governor's budget recommended taking that to 50.7%. The Senate recommends taking that to 30% of the statewide kindergarten population, and the House recommends 37.6%. The only federal way school district school that will be captured in any one of those three is Valhalla Elementary for next year. So we're proceeding, even though we don't have a state budget, we're proceeding under the assumption that Valhalla will indeed receive state funding for full-day K or all-day K next year. We're still holding back expanding full-day K based on the House or the governor's budget, because there's such a wide discrepancy there. Part of the McCleary decision and the Quality Education Council work requires reducing class size in our high poverty schools. The Senate version is the current level of funding, where you get one teacher for every 24.1 students. I don't know how they came up with 24.1 students, but that's the current level of funding. The House budget, which was introduced, reduces that slightly to 22.68. Across all grade levels K3, the governor focused on K1 and has made a recommendation to reduce those to a class size of 1 teacher for every 20 students, which was where we were at as a district when we had the $9.5 million worth of I-728 funding, which we no longer have. Transportation, of course, is another key component of basic education funding that the courts have declared the state's not meeting its constitutional obligation around. The governor and the Senate both indicate that that should be fully funded beginning in 13-14. The House is recommending 50% funding. MSOC, everybody's new 4-letter acronym for NERC, material supplies and operating costs, all include increases, but again, those increases vary dramatically between the 3 budgets. And then a couple of other pieces that are out there that aren't in the top 4 but are important to us have to do with LAP, or Learning Assistance Program funding. LAP funding is being generated for schools under the new funding formulas based on hours per week, based on students who qualify for who aren't meeting standard as measured by the MSP and the HISP. The governor's budget and the Senate budget each add about an hour and a half a week per qualifying student. The House budget does a very little tweak in terms of LAP funding. Big differences, although the governor's budget and the Senate budget are both looking at taking it from an hour and a half, adding an hour and a half, so they're both about 3 hours a week. Really significant differences in the kinds of strings attached to that LAP funding or the types of programs that we could potentially support. So not sure what that looks like. And of course, thanks to the work that Ron Mayberry has done in Olympia this year, it looks like our online learning program, the Internet Academy, which is online learning is one type of alternative learning experience, that we anticipate that we will see a return to the full basic ed allocation for online learning. There are still discussions about how many students you might be able to count under that full funding. So again, things are continuing to progress in a positive way as we go through this session. It would have been great if we could have had a budget by now, but that's okay. We'll wait. Giving you a little bit of a sneak peek to the superintendent's recommendation. The first topic's not really a surprise to any of us because we've been saying this publicly for a while, but all of the state budget scenarios restore the salary allocation reduction, which that salary allocation reduction, we were using fund balance in order to avoid furlough days. So we no longer need to talk about having furlough days or whether or not we can continue to spend fund balance to support that into the next biennium. Those salary allocations have been restored in all 3 of the budgets, and I would expect that to be in the final budget. All of the state budget scenarios increase the employer retirement contribution rates. And you'll recall that when times are tough, the amount of money employers are asked to put into the pension funds is typically reduced because that saves the state money and saves employers money. And then when times are better, we start seeing that come back up. Because not all of our positions are funded by state funding, when that state funding formula goes up and down, it either saves us money or costs us money. All of the budgets include the same increases for the 3 pension funds that school districts contribute to. On average, that's about 2.25%. So we're looking to accommodate in the budget next year a $1.7 million expenditure for increased retirement contributions. So while we might be doing a happy dance about increased things like MSOC, a lot of that or transportation costs, that will get absorbed by increasing retirement rates and is something we have to pay attention to when we talk about affordable and sustainable. And the real sneak peek is that, as promised, when the superintendent implemented the $10 million reduction, one of the things we committed to restoring were the 4 FTE that impacted 8 of our elementary schools, when their school counselor or deans were reduced from a 1.0 to a 0.5. So in order to accommodate the staffing work that our Human Resources Department is doing, we did release that restoration in front of the superintendent's recommendation to you. And that pretty much takes us back to the timeline that you've seen a lot. I did add the fact that the special session convenes on May 11th. Our first public hearing is, I'm sorry, I should have said May 13th. Our first public hearing is scheduled for June 11th, which is the day of the 30th day of the special session. So I'm not sure if our first public hearing, which typically focuses on the other 4 funds that you adopt budgets for, but we may get some late breaking news while I'm at the podium talking to you on June 11th. Again, the superintendent's budget recommendation is still slated to be presented to you in its entirety on May 28th. Questions, comments?
Thank you. Any questions or comments, board members?
Thank you for your attention. I know our meeting ran long.
Thank you very much. All right. So board members, you have an assessment document in front of you to assess the meeting. And Chris, I don't think we had any action items. No, we did not. Superintendent, any last words you'd like to share this evening?
I just want to thank the board for your patience tonight. Long meeting, but as you can see with the updates that were provided by several staff and the budget scenario presented by Sally, great work going on in the district this year. And it's been an outstanding school year, and let's finish off the last month with continued excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, and with that, our meeting is adjourned.